much. Have a successful day. תודה, כבוד הרב.
Shalom and Boker Tov. I don't have to apologize about it. I speak the most common language in the world, lousy English, but I'll try to do my best. That challenge that I want to learn to get together is actually kind of a surprise. This is one of the amazing stories that we know in the Talmud, but I don't know really why most of the people didn't see it, never saw it, never read it, even though it's part of the integral part of the Talmud and a very, very good story. And I'm really surprised. I know my students, I know many people that I am learning with them together the story. It's a long story. It's an amazing story. It seems sometimes like a Bresler story, especially the end. And the reason that we are going to learn it together, because I see that as the best preparations towards Hanukkah. And I want to go back to years ago, when Rabbi Lichtenstein gave a sicha in the yeshiva. And I remember his first sentence. And his first sentence was that in Israel, and probably also abroad, when we grow up, we think that the Greeks, the Yevanim, were really people that only killed and bloodshed and occupations and war and battlefields and the really Rishoim. And when we grow up and we discover the philosophy, we discover the wide world that they had, the art and the culture and really amazing things, and even the fact that part of our ideology and way of life, especially in the Western world, is consequences of the Hellenistic world. And we could say Yevanim, Greek, but actually it's Hellenism. And then we don't know exactly what was the battle against and what really happened. Are they bad people? Are they good people? Are they influenced us so much and we adopted so much, especially when we speak about the Rishonim. I mean, when we speak about the Rambam and all his area. So how to manage and how to ask ourselves, what exactly is the difference and what exactly is the gap between our faith in our belief in our emunah and way of living and theirs. And this question that Rav Lichtenstein actually raised up is a very good one. Is a really a very good one. And I think that the story that we are going to learn today is a good answer to this question. It's a very long story, very complicated. We'll see. We'll try first of all to read it and to get the idea of the story. It has many parts, and then afterwards, as long as we will be able to do that, we'll speak about it and we'll try to understand what exactly are the fields here. I'm saying from the beginning that I will also interpret doing the reading. Now, because my English and especially translating Talmud Aramaic to English is not my best things that I can know. So you have the Hebrew in the right, and I'll read it more or less in Hebrew, and you have now towards the left the translation into English. So everybody will be very convenient and will be able to understand it. And as you see, the story is from the Talmud, Tamid Lamed Bet, and it speaks about the meeting between Alexander of Mokdon, and a group, elders of the Negev. I don't know exactly what's the Negev and who are they, but I want to say something about this period of time in history. As you know, when we are asking what year are we in now, according to the Yahadut, we always answer Tafshin Pei Bet. It's 5,782 years from the creation. But this is something quite new, that our dates are starting from the creation. When we read Tanakh, so there are different areas. In the beginning, we don't even find trying to say that what year are we in. I mean, all Bereshit, we don't see that. We see the ages of the heroes, but not a date. Afterwards, we see that our dates are relating to Yetziat Mitzrayim. For instance, in the beginning of Melachim, we read that the Mikdash was established 480 years after Yetziat Mitzrayim. So the date is actually, and that's HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem Rosh Chodeshim, that's the most important place in the world, occasion in our world that took place, and we are usually are saying that how many years passed from Yetziat Mitzrayim. But in the biggest period of time we had of our history, we had a different date. And that's what we find in the Egyptian Gniza, Binyan Lishtarot. That means there was a special date, that for contracts and for all kinds of loans and shtar that we have to write, the date wasn't from the creation, wasn't from Yetziat Mitzrayim, it was special Binyan Lishtarot. What was the 0 year when we started? And it actually took place 1,600 years, maybe 1,700 years. I mean, the longest period of time of the dates was Minyan Lishtarot, not creation, not Yetziat Mitzrayim, not parenthood or whatever, but Minyan Lishtarot. And the 0 year was the year that we are reading now, the story. I mean, the meeting with Alexander Mokdon, minus 333, 331, not exactly, but I'm mentioning this point in order to explain how important the story that we are going to read now is and what value it has, because we are talking about the period of time where we met in Israel, in the land of Israel, the Macedonians and what we call today in Hebrew, Hellenism. And so therefore we're reading, I think, one of the most important stories of Jewish history. And again, I only can express my surprise that most of the people don't know and didn't meet this story, even though it's a good one and it's a very long one. Okay, so let's start. Alexander, 10 דברים שאל אלכסנדר מוקדון את זקני הנגב, and he said to them. So we're talking about 10 questions. Some will be strange to us, but let's try to transfer them from minus 333 to 2021, and then we'll find that they have a lot of sense. So the first question was, who is worthy of being here's a mistake, probably. Oh, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. So we'll start. So I'll start with Hebrew. Don't look on the English now. Probably I made a mistake copying the translation. Okay. So the first question was, what is bigger? מן השמיים לארץ רחוק או ממזרח למערב? That the question is, when we are talking about, is it more high or more wide, the world? So it's actually a scientific question. מן השמיים לארץ רחוק, yeah, up and down, or west and east. אמרו לו, ממזרח למערב. תדע, so it's between west and east, תדע, and that's the proof, that because when the sun is in the east, שהרי חמה במזרח, everybody could look at it. That means it's very far. חמה במערב, הכל מסתכלים בה, because it's very far, it's in the west. But when it's up, it's too close, we can't look at it. Yeah? חמה באמצע רקיע, אין הכל מסתכלים בה. So this is the scientific proof that Chachamim actually claimed that we can know that between wide and east and west is bigger. That it's longest than, try to measure between us and the sun. But other sages said, וחכמים אומרים, זה וזה כאחד שווים, שנאמר כי גבוה השמיים על הארץ כרחוק מזרח ומערב. They're equal, because the pasuk says, exactly like between Shamayim va'aretz and west and east, it's the same thing. And the ichad minayu nafish, if something is bigger, so we don't have to write twice of them, two of them. We can write only Shamayim va'aretz or only Mizrach ma'arav. So therefore, there's a different explanation. Why can we look directly to the sun when it's in east and west, and we cannot do it when it's in the sky? ואלה חמה באמצע רקיע, מה תמה אין הכל מסתכלים בה? So why can't we look on חמה when it's in the sun, when it's in the middle of the world? It's a different reason. משום דקאי להדיה, because it's direct. ולא קסים, there are not no clouds to cover it, and because of that, we can't look directly. When it's in the east or in the west, it's quite cloudy, and so therefore this is the reason that we can look directly. Now I want to say again, when we read the story, we may think, it's crazy, they didn't know anything about science, and the answer is so, doesn't make sense. That's right. But I want to emphasize the questions. And as you see, when there was a meeting between Alexandros Mukdon and our sages, we started with science. And science is together. And this is part of the, I can say, the good things that happened when we met the different culture, what we call Yevanim, but as I said, it's not really Yevanim, it's more Hellenism. We started with science. And again, Amar lahem, second question, Shamayim nivre'u tchila o haaretz? What was created before, the sky or landscape? Amru, Shamayim nivre'u tchila. The sky was created before, שנאמר בראשית ברא אלוקים את השמיים ואת הארץ. Okay, so the proof came from the Torah. אמר להם, and now we'll start to see the contradictions, אור נברא תחילה או חושך? What was created before, the sun or the dark? אמרו לו, מילתא דא אין לה פתר. We don't know. It's something that we don't know. So this is the original story. Now the Gemara is asking about this answer. So it's a kind of a commentation of or interpretation of the Gemara of this answer. And the Gemara is asking, why didn't they give the same answer or the same sources like the former question? Here they had a pasuk, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. So we know when the pasuk says, v'choshech al pnei tehom, so this is the same source. Exactly like they answered the second question, they could have answered the third question. V'nemru le, why didn't they tell him, choshech nivra tchila? דכתיב, הארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו וחושך. והדר, and later, ויאמר אלוקים יהי אור. So why didn't they answer in the same, not the same answer, in the same system? Take the pasuk and we know exactly what happened. So the Gemara says they didn't want to answer because they knew this conversation will go to directions that they don't want to go there. Savri, they thought, Dilma, maybe, ati lishiluye, so he will come and ask, the next question will be, מה למעלה ומה למטה. Okay, let's start. We started with science. We started with the world. We started with the cosmos. But then he'll ask what is above and who created and all kinds of philosophy questions. מה לפנים ומה לאחור, what happened before the creation and where are we going to? And they didn't want to discuss this issue. And now you see the beginning of the gap. Science, naturally, whatever is okay. Starting with philosophy, trying in a philosophic way to shape our belief in God and what happened before, this is the gap. We are not philosophers, we are believers. And therefore, they didn't want to reach to this point. And you see now why are we starting to learn the story? Because this story, as I said, I think is the best answer to what Rav Lichtenstein, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, asked in the beginning of the speech of the Sikha that he gave on a Hanukkah party in the yeshiva. So, but the Gemara is not satisfied with this answer, because the Gemara says, if they didn't want to reach this philosophic discussion, Shamaim namin lo nemrule. So why did they answer the second question? Yeah, why did they answer about this question about Shamaim or Eretz or whatever? Don't start this discussion. So the Gemara explains, the Ikara in the beginning, they thought Savur Akrai be'alma hu dekashail. It's not going to be a big philosophic discussion. He only, by chance, Akrai is by chance, he asked this question about Shamayim or Eretz. Kevan dechazu, when they realized the kahadar shail, that he is continuing, and this is going to be a big, battle about philosophy and faith or whatever, they decided, Savri, lo neimale, we will not answer him. Dilma, because we understand that the next question will be ma lemala, ma lemata, ma lefanim, ma leachor. Okay, so we don't want to discuss these questions. So therefore, let's leave him and we'll go ahead. Okay, so the next question was the fourth, as you know from Masechet Avot, Eden Mikari Chacham. Who is the smart person, character? Amru lo, Ezehu Chacham, Haro'eh et hanolad. As you know, this is also a great philosophy discussions. When we are talking about who's the wise guy and what is wisdom, and what answer should wisdom give us? Is it trying to understand what happened, what is the essence, and what are the sources or whatever, or asking where to go? And the fact that our answer is Ezeu Chacham Haro'eh et hanolad is very important. Again, the fifth question, Ezeu Gibor, Amar lahem Ezeu Gibor, who is the hero? Amru lo, Ezeu Gibor, as we know, Hakovesh et Yitzro, and again, this is the big gap between us and him, because we are talking about ethics, about our self-behavior, our conscience, our able to occupy and to deal with our problems in the inside, Yetzer. And his answer probably is Ezeu Gibor, the big hero, and we'll see it in the the person that is occupying the whole world, and he's gone from east to west, and we'll see it soon. But I want to emphasize something, and I want everybody to realize the fact that you see that Alexander Mukdon, and we'll see it also along the whole story, is not being described like a Rasha. Yeah, he's not the devil. And it's a discussion. And I think this is the very important atmosphere of the story, the environment of the story, the fact that it's not Hayevani HaRasha, yeah, and he's not the evil. And the fact that we are talking, it's a discussion, it's a meeting where slowly, we see the differences between the Jewish belief and the Greek and the Hellenism. I think that this is the reason that the story is so important, because after we put aside the fact that there was trying to destroy the Mikdash, whatever, that the culturally discussion is continuing until today about those issues. Who is the wise? Who is the Gibor? And now, sof, we have the translation in English, so now it's better. אמר להם, עידין מתקרן עשיר, who is the Rivich being called wealthy, and he said, they said, השמח בחלקו, yeah, the pleased with his own portion. And again, this is a great gap between trying, I'm saying it before Black Friday, and because, during those weeks about the crazy buying everything and having more and more and more and more. And our answer is זהו השיר השמח בחלקו. Okay, so now we had 3 questions about philosophy and science, 3 questions about behavior. Let's continue, and now you will see really very interesting things about the story. I mean, about having about the story and the relationship between him and them, and how it's being described from in the what words and what environment and what approach is towards Alexander Mukdon. And again, I'm saying he's not a rasha. It's a discussion. אמר להם, מה יעביד איניש ויחיה? Now, there are a lot of commentators that really debated what was the question. We'll see the English version. The English question was, what must a man do, and ensure that he will live? So the answer was, he should, kill himself. Now, kill himself is not that he should suicide. It's actually to be moderate. I mean, not to be so fussy about the world and trying to have more and more and more and more, So the opposite question was, מה יביד איניש וימות? What to do in order to ensure that he will die fast, if he wants to die fast. So the best thing to do is יחיה עצמו, I mean, continuing, trying to achieve more and more and more and more and more, you'll die as fast as possible. So again, I think we don't know his opinion. Wait a minute, we'll know in a minute his opinion about a few things. But I think that the questions actually are demonstrating and showing us, presenting his ideas, because he probably thought the opposite. I mean, in order to, if not to do anything, this is death, and to do more and more and more and more it's alive. And Chachamim are putting the opposite, again, 2 approaches, different culture approaches towards the world. And here is, I think, one of the very interesting questions and answer. And now the question is, מה יעביד איניש? What should a person do? And ויתקבל על ברייתא. ברייתא, that means בריאות. I mean, he'll be accepted by people. So the answer that they said to Alexander is, he must hate the kingdom and the authorities. That's the idea. Don't be a politician. Don't be a leader. If you want to be accepted by people, the best thing is run away from being an authority or having to predict the state or to conduct the state. And the best thing is run away from that. But here, it's something very interesting in the story. The Gemara gives him the chance, the ability to express his opinion. And his opinion, again, you can see the gap is completely the opposite. Amar lehu, yeah, and they said, he told them, okay, my advice, yeah, we're here, if we're talking about translation, it's here. My advice of gaining people's favor is the opposite. And that is better, than mine is better than yours. He must love kingdom. I'm not commentating exactly like the English translation. I'm going to, Rashi said, no, that what he's talking is not that we are loving the kingdom, but he should love, should want to be a king or to be authority, and he will do good things to other people. So that's a very interesting answer. And again, I want to, first of all, to emphasize the fact that Chazal gave him the chance to express his opinion, and we can see the difference. We can see the difference. He is talking about the power, about authorities, about being a leader, about doing things, in the whole world to good people. And Chazal spoke about the opposite, you better stay far from it. And if you want to be beloved and, and in favor in people's minds, you better, be modest, moderate, not a leader. And I think it's amazing. And I hope that we are sharing the same opinion, that this is the story that we can dig and deeper in order to understand how Chazal saw the differences between our way of thinking and Alexander Hamogdon. Okay, so now we are in the 8th question. And he asked them, where is better to live, in the sea or dry land? Again, this is not only a question about quality of life. The sea, you can understand that for a king that is moving all over the world and gone from nation, from this place to this place, the sea, always in Chazal, is a big icon, of a big impression of, going and occupying and going to new worlds. And the land is to be stable. So you can exactly understand who gave the answer, what he thought, and what is the answer of the Chachamim. The Chachamim said, Amru lo biyabeshta ya elemida, it's better to live in dry land. The hakol nechut yamin, we can prove it, because all the people that are in the sea, their minds are constantly unsettled until they reach the dry land. So therefore, this is the best proof that everybody prefers his house, his home, his land, and not going to always to new worlds and to try to do things all over the continents. So this is really, again, you can see the gap between the two philosophy, way of living, culture of living. And let's read now the last 2 questions. 9th, Iden min kon hakim yoter, who is wiser? So this is part of looking at the world as this constant contest and trying to be always better than someone else. And therefore, we should ask, and he asks and he expresses through his question the idea about that you should climb constantly and try to be the best. The world is a big competition between people. So who is the wiser? And the answer was, we are all equal. I mean, actually, it's not important. This is not the way to look at life. And this is, we are all equal, and we can, again, we can prove it. The hakol milta, the amarta lana, as every matter that you said to us, we solve it in, together. And not no one here is wiser than the other people, other person. And I'm saying again, I think that the question is not only who's wiser, and the question expresses the culture of looking at the world as a constant competition or something completely different, and it's not so important who is wiser, whatever. We are all together trying to do the best thing that we can. And now the last conversation. The 10. אמר להם, מה דין התריסטון לקבלי? What is the substance of this stance by which you oppose me? What are you telling yourself when you see that actually I'm the strongest here, not you, and actually I succeeded to beat you and to defeat you and to, and to occupy you? So the answer was the devil. Yeah, Stana Nitzech. Yeah, the answer was, we all the only thing that we can say that Satan, is victorious. Yeah, so okay, so he responded, if this is your attitude, so I'll kill. What will you say if I'll kill you all? Let me put the Hebrew down so we can compare it. And so he told them, I'll come in the name or on behalf of the king, and I'll kill all of you. So our answer, and their answer was, authority is in the hand of the king, but flesh wood is becoming for the king. It's not the right thing to do. And he was convinced. I mean, this hit at him, and now we are ending the first part of the story. It's going to be we'll see. It's going to develop to really amazing directions. But the end of the first part of the story, he was so impressed, so he dressed them in garments of purple and all kinds of fancy outwear, and gave them a golden chain on their necks, and he was really impressed. So this is the end of the first part of the story. And as I said, I think that this story, now we can read it again much slower, and now we can understand the base of the real argument and the real discussion and the real gap, differences between what he presents and what the traditional Jewish life presented in those days. And then we should ask ourselves also today, what are our relationship, and what is still stable, what was different, what is different, what happened between the two cultures. But if we want to understand the real gap, the real battle between Judaism and Alexander Mokdon, it's not only the fact that from the military point of view, he came and occupied and almost destructed the Mikdash. It's much more than that. It's a accident between a car crash. It's not an accident, it's a crash between two cultures. And these 10 questions actually represent all kinds of aspects of this crash. I'm talking about science, about philosophy, about ethics, about lifestyle, about morality, about all the questions that we studied. And as I'm saying again, the right thing to do is now to read them from the beginning and discuss them, and to ask ourselves what actually are the gaps between the two cultures. But the story is continuing to, as I said, crazy directions. And so let's go and let's continue, because it also has something. And I think that the most important part of the story is the final one, is the bottom line. So we'll get there later. Amar lehem. Okay, now we're starting the second part of the story. It's in the Gemara. And he said, I want to go to the countries of Africa. Yeah? Be'ina de'izil limdinat Africa. So their response was, you can't. Amrule, lo matzil azal, you can't go there, because the paske hare choshech, there are mountains of darkness, and they block the way to Africa. So he responded like Alexander Mokdon and told him, excuse me, I didn't ask you if I should go. I ask you how to go. Yeah, it's not possible for me not to go. This is part of who I am, as I explained before, and trying to occupy and to go to other countries and to be the king of the whole world. So I didn't ask you how, if to go. I ask you, what should I do in order to succeed and to get there? So their answer was a very strange answer, but I think that the answer is not so important. So we read it fast. And they told them, bring Lubinian donkeys, Aite Chamri Lubai, the Parshe Bechava, that they can see also in the dark, because it's, as we called before, it's the mountains of darkness. So they should be able to look and to see when it's dark. The Aite Kibore de Matne, and tie them, a rope around their like belts, around them. The Qatar behaigisa, and you should tie the other end to yourself. The chi atit nakat begavayo, that when they go, you can hold it. And the atit latrach, they will lead you there. So I only want to. I'm not talking about the recommendation and the technology of navigating in the darkness mountains, but I'm talking about the fact that the sages knew how to go better than him. But their decision was, you shouldn't go. You know, what should you do there? And his decision was the opposite. I must go and, more and more and more and more. And I don't know how, so he got the answer. And now it's a really strange choice. Okay, so he went. Alexander went according to their decision, and he reached and come to a place that all the population can be'azal natalahu mechoza de kulo nashi. Only women live there. So actually, I think that the story, it's becoming more and more mystery in more and more kinds of fiction. Yeah, but it is going to be. Now, until now, we read a very realistic story. I don't know if it happened or not. Didn't happen. It's not so important. There was a guide in Jerusalem that always told a lot of stories about Jerusalem. And always the kids were asking him, did it happen or did it? So his response, well, I don't know if it's happened or didn't happen, but it's a real story. Okay, so what we read before, I don't know if it happened or didn't happen, but it's a real story, a realistic story. Now, more and more, we are coming to a kind of an imagination story, but it's, like every kind or every kind of this literature, science fiction is also very important. And we can learn a lot about Chazal opinions through these stories. So let's continue. Avad Achi, as we said, and he reached a place that was always only with women, and he wanted to wage battle against them. Yeah, but he wanted to krav, yeah, a battle against them, because he wanted to occupy their land. Now, see what was their response. Amrule, you lose, everything you'll do in this, under those circumstances, you will lose. Why? If you'll kill us, people will say, he kills women, big hero. If we will win, we'll kill you, wow, this will be a big insult, and in history you will be remembered as the king that was killed by women. I mean, you lose in any case. So let's for a second stay in this answer. And here, really, you can see the big hero that is wanting. We are women. I mean, it's a area of every one of us are women, but is a woman. I mean, in the story, and you know what? You don't have any benefits that you'll get from occupying or making a battle against us, because actually it's really so different. Your dreams about beating everyone, and we as women that understand that what, you'll lose by any chance. We are living here in a different philosophy, different way of living, so therefore you can't win. And I think the story wants to say it's not only like we spoke before, that there are two cultures, Judaism and Hellenism, and then it's a difference. But here is something that the story is trying to explain, that there are things that in Alexander's way you can't get, and it's limited. And when it's not limited because there's someone that is stronger than you, it has limits because there are some things that you cannot get with power and with occupying, and with battlefields. There are things that you cannot get through there. You must think in a completely different way, and we'll see it soon. So the story in the area, the region of only women, continues. Amar lehem, Aitu li nahama. Naham is bread. Bring me bread. Remember, it's still the same story in the Talmud. And they were smart enough, and they brought him bread of gold upon a table of gold. I mean, something you cannot eat. Amar lehu. So he responded, Mi achli inchi nahama dedava? How can I eat it? I asked for bread, and you gave me a bread that was produced from gold. So that means I can't eat it. So they told them, don't make don't be foolish. We know exactly what you wanted. If you really wanted bread, you couldn't bring bread from your place, from your bakeries. You didn't come here in order to eat bread. We understood exactly that you came here in order to achieve all kinds of benefits and gold and custom. And I don't know exactly what benefits that a king can have when he occupies different states, but this is the reason you came. So don't make up, don't wear a mask. And when you asked for bread, it's not because you were hungry, it's because you actually wanted to maybe to insult us, that the only thing that we can give you is bread. So we proved that we have it, but you wanted something completely different. You are not the person that wants to eat and sit and be relaxed. You want gold, and we gave it to you. So please, take the mask out of your face. And actually, that was his response. This is the end of the second part of the story. So when he left and came back to his journey, not to his land, because the journey didn't finish yet, he wrote about the gate of the town. Alexander Mokdon was a fool until I came to the country of Africa for women, and I learned sense from women. I mean, now, again, in order to commentate this story, we should sit together and ask ourselves what exactly the women taught him. Why was he so impressed? Why did he write this sign on the gate of the town? I get a very good lesson from women. And I want to remind ourselves too, actually got two lessons. One, when he wanted to conduct a battle between them, and he was sure that he will achieve victory very fast. And they told them, you know what, you cannot win in this game. And what actually he learned about his limits, about his personality, about his character, whatever. The second thing about the story of the bread and the bread and gold. And the third thing, what can we, after 2,300 years, maybe more, learn from this story about ourselves and about the meeting of two cultures, Alexander Mukdon's culture and our tradition. And now the third part of the story that, as I said in the beginning, is more and more with imagination and starting to remind stories of Reb Nachman Braslav. Really, I'm saying again, I'm expressing my surprise that it's a story that is not known, even though it's a part of the Talmud. Okay. Ki shakil ve'ati, okay, when he continued his journey, and he continued on his way, he sat near a spring, Yativ ahu ma'ayana, Ma'ayan is a spring, in order to eat bread. And actually now we see that the women were right, he has bread. He doesn't need bread from the women, but it's only, it's not the important thing. The story now, it's only, by the way, I want to show the way of writing the story and proving that, as I said, the women were right, and they were so smart when they served bread of gold and not real bread. Okay. Now he had also herring. Salted fish. So you see the first time of Kiddush with herring, probably in the history, at least it's been mentioned in the history, is this story. And he had herring in his hand, and he wanted to make it a little bit less salty. When he wanted to wash the salt out of the fish in order that he'll be able to eat it, and suddenly he smelled a special smell, yeah, and something that he wanted to understand. How can I smell it? What are the sources? Where are the roots of this smell? Amar, and he told himself, Shma mine, I can understand that this spring is coming from Garden of Eden. Yeah, it comes from the Garden of Eden because it's something that, even though I went over the whole world, I never smelled such a smell. So therefore, it's really something very special in the spring. And there's another version of this story, Shakal mehanu maya, and not that he washed, tried to clean the salt from the fish, but actually he washed his face. Yes, Shakal mehanu maya, and he said, and he wanted to wash his face, and then he smelled the smell, and then he said it's from the Garden of Heaven, from Gan Eden, and Ika de Amre idlikule, and there's another version of the story. Ad demata lefitcha de Gan Eden. He actually started to search and to go through and to look for the sources of the water, and he reached the entrance of the garden. That is really I think, the peak of the story. A little bit imagination before we continue. Please close your eyes and think about Alexander Mukdon with his whole delegation and whole army standing in front of the gate of Gan Eden. What will happen there? What will happen there when he comes to Gan Eden and he smells a good smell and he wants to go in? Ramakala, so he announced or yelled, Pitchu li Baba, open the gate for me. Baba, as you know, is a Baba Kama, like is the first gate or Babel Wad, Sha'ar Hagai. Baba is the word of a gate. So he insists that they will open the gate of the Garden of Eden because, it's Alexander Mukdon. Nobody can close a gate in front of him. And he must be able to go into Gan Eden. And the answer, I think, as I said before, I think this is the peak of the story. The answer was, Zeh Hashar Lashem. Everybody knows the continue. I think the most important thing is not Zeh Hashar Lashem. It's actually the continuation of the pasuk. Tzadikim Yavovu. To Gan Eden, there's only one way to go in. It's not kingdom, it's not occupations, it's not money, it's not horses, it's not delegations, it's not philosophy, it's not science, it's not nothing. Tzadikim, only righteous are permitted to come into Gan Eden. And as I said before, I think that this is the essence of the story. And it's not only the essence of the story, it's the essence about what's important in life, or what is the difference between the cultures, and what is actually the target of our personality during our lives. And what is the indicator that we did the right things, and that we fulfilled our mission in our life or whatever. And this is actually two words. Two words are enough in order to express the main idea of the story, the main clash of the two cultures, and the main reason of celebrating Hanukkah. I mean, this is actually the most important thing, because the fact, I want to explain something about Hanukkah. Hanukkah is a big discussion, even in the Gemara, and it's also a big surprise, the fact that Hanukkah exists, because it was a very important occasion on the Hashmonaim days. But after Tisha B'Av, after the destruction, to celebrate the fact that 200 years before, there was a kind of a conflict between us and the Greeks, and then we succeeded to win or whatever. As you know, there's a Megillat Tanit, there are 50 holidays from those kinds of holidays. And the fact that they succeeded to cross the destruction, and we are now 200 years after the Hashmonaim are still celebrating it, even the Gemara is quite surprised. What happened to Hanukkah and Purim? I'm not talking now about Purim, that they succeeded. They don't have any meaning after the destruction, because, okay, so we had a nice period of time during Hanukkah, but what is the meaning today? So some of the people, I think there are a few answers. One is the fact that we are talking about the Ness, about the miracle, about God interpretation, intervening in the history, whatever. But I think that this story is giving a different answer. And this story is saying, you know what, the battle is still here. And we are continuing the battle. Who is the person, and what are the demands for someone that wants to come in the end of the life, the end of the day, into Gan Eden? And Alexander Mukdon, and we'll see it soon, says, I am a king. I'm Alexander Mukdon. There's no one more than me that should, be authorized and be will have the crown of coming in Gan Eden, because I did more than anyone in the world in order to squeeze out my life. And the answer that he got from Gan Eden, this is not the essence that is permitting people to come in Gan Eden. Tzadikim. And that was the answer, Tzadikim Yevobu. And he insists Anna, Amar Lehon, Anna Nane Malka Anna. I'm a king. Okay, so it's a meeting between kings. God is a king, and I'm a king. And I am worthy. I'm a king. I'm very important. And Mirshav Chashivna, at least give me something. Yeah, okay, so please give me something from Gan Eden in order to express your recognition towards me. I mean, you must recognize that I also did something in this world. So they gave him something. They gave him a Gulgolet, Gulgolet Achad, and they gave him a eyeball. And he suddenly realized it's very heavy. So he wanted to weight it. So on one side of the weight, he put this eyeball. From the other side, he started to add more and more gold and silver, and it didn't balance. Lo hava mitkele. He didn't succeed to measure. I mean, it means that the bones were so heavy that even if he put on the second plate of the weight, all the gold and the silver that he had, maybe even the bread from the women. Yeah. So these are the connections between the parts of the story, and he didn't. It wasn't balanced. So he went back to the sages. You see, we are coming back to the beginning of the story. And he asked them, what's that? My height. Yeah, well, how could it be? So the answer of the sages is very strange. You know what? It is the eyeball of a person and that wasn't satisfied in his life. And he always wanted to add and add and add more and more. You see that this idea is coming back and back and back through the whole story. Also on the philosophic conversation, the conversation with the women, and even now in the third part, this was the problem of this person, that you are holding his eyeball in your hands, and he didn't stop, and therefore you measure and you weight his in the end of his life, you can't balance. So he said, I mean, how can you say such a thing? How do you know? This is the reason that because of that I cannot balance between the weights. So the answer was very interesting. You know what? Take some mud or dirt and cover his eyes, and you'll see what happened. Okay, so and immediately you'll see that you are able to balance it, and that it's a pasuk sheol ve'avadan lo tisbana. Yeah, they will never be satisfied, and so therefore this is the eyes of this person. This is the end of the story. I mean, the end. Now, did I succeed to convince you that this is the story we should learn before Hanukkah? Not the only one, because there are very important things about Hanukkah that you cannot deny it, and it's really very important. And as I said, the miracle, the ideas of the intervening of Hashem, and the fact that we succeeded, Rabbi, and whatever. And definitely we are lighting Hanukkah candles because this was the period of time of Hanukkah, and we're celebrating Hanukkah, and we're concentrating of the remembering and realizing the facts and what happened on Hanukkah itself. But I think this story is a much wider and important point of the meetings between the cultures. And I think that this story should be the introduction. And after this introduction, we can understand and we can see Hanukkah not only as a period of time, few years that there was a battle between us and the Greeks, but actually we can see that something has started when Alexander Macedon occupied the world, actually, especially the Middle East and towards Egypt and towards Africa, as we read. And it's a culture that we and them are in a constant dialogue. I want to emphasize again, the fact that this story is not describing Alexander as a Rasha. And it's not like Antiochus, it's not like Haman. You know, it's not this. Actually, when you read the story, it's a very nice attitude and approach towards Alexander. He is not foolish. He is not he's not doing bad things. He's asking, he's listening, he's arguing. He's doing things like a king. He gets something from Gan Eden. You know, it's the fact that this is the story. It's not black and white. That's I think the most important thing of the story, because when you meet this, you can see actually what is the real argue, or what is the real distinguish, how can you really distinguish between cultures that meet, that have a kind of influence. There's a lot of influence. Judaism influenced the Western world, and the Western world that actually, these are the descendants of Alexander Macedon, had a lot of influence on Judaism, and still there is a gap between the way of life, the lifestyle, the thinking, and especially the target. Is the target being, I'm a king, let me come in Gan Eden to Gan Eden, or זה השאר להשם צדיקים יבואו בו, צדיקים and a king. And I think this is the real essence of the differences between those two cultures. And even though they had a lot of dialogues and a lot of connection, I think it's really very, very important and to learn this story as a preface before you come in Hanukkah. And I hope that you enjoyed it. First of all, it's a good story, but more than that, that I succeeded at least to raise the question, is this the right thing to do when we are preparing ourselves towards Hanukkah, and understanding what exactly is the gap between the two cultures, and what exactly is the direction that we want to reach. And as I said, tzaddikim or kings or tzaddikim, I think this is the most important thing that we can learn from this story. And thank you for being patient to my lousy English.
Shkoach.